Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Nathan, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Gus and Alvaro. Tonight, you will be staying in Room 107, The French Dispatch, latest film by God of Symmetry, Wes Anderson. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we discuss The French Dispatch.
Try to make it sound like you wrote it that way on purpose.
What's going on, all you expatriates? Thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. We got a good one for you this week, but before we get into things, I wanted to give a big shout out to a friend of the podcast, Holly. She's the one who did our new artwork, so we wanted to give a big thank you to her. Really, really happy with it.
Big shout out, Holly.
Yeah, she absolutely crushed it. So
Thank you for that, Holly.
if you ever need any graphic design work, I'm sure she could help you out, so feel free to reach out. But
Yeah, I really like the new logo.
I do too. It really makes it feel like it's kind of official and it's like coming to life almost.
And we did feel that this was the episode to talk about it because the name revolves around Wes Anderson. It just seemed like the right time to sit down and talk about the design. That's where we got the idea from, obviously. Really glad with the purple. It looks very elegant, you know? It looks,
I really like it. I can't wait to see it on merch one day.
I know. It's so
So
cool.
if anybody wants merch, let us know because we want to make some. And I can't wait to see it on a shirt. The mock-ups she sent us of the shirts, fire.
Very cool. Yeah.
I know.
I love the purple color. We gotta find out exactly what that color is
That's
called.
mauve.
Mauve. Whatever. Yeah, what Alvaro was talking about with the just Wes Anderson and like the name. Obviously, the name is based off the Grand Budapest Hotel. Wes Anderson knows how to really fucking just create a world. And like when I picture what the Grand Cinema Hotel looks like, it's like a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree. Just weird, quirky, just got a lot of stuff going on, you know?
Yeah, just you know, like with this movie, they have the poster and it's like the New Yorker,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got all of the different people in it.
Yeah.
That's how I want like to picture the hotel.
Just
You
a
know what
bunch
I
of
mean? Just,
different
like,
characters.
Yeah, just like living in our hotel,
I like it.
trapped forever,
Yeah,
never to
right?
get out.
You never getting out. You stay in room 102.
Yeah, you live in 102, lamb.
Yeah, but this week we went and saw the French Dispatch, newest film by Wes Anderson.
God of Symmetry.
God
as you
of
called him.
Symmetry, yes, exactly. Had a lot of fun. How do you guys feel about Wes Anderson in general?
Love Wes Anderson.
Yeah. I think in order to name our podcast off of something that he kind of did, I think we'd have to be fans.
Yeah, I haven't seen all of them. I know you guys, I think you guys have seen more than I have. I
All
haven't
but
seen
one. I haven't
Moonrise
seen
Kingdom.
Bottle Rocket.
I haven't seen Bottle Rocket, but his style is so unique and just the way that he uses sets. Yeah, God of Symmetry. Not very many people still use that style. I know, obviously, I'm having a hard time thinking that he invented it because obviously he
It's
got
1 point
inspiration from-
perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I know Nate has a note on like the camera works that he does, right? The ones that you were showing me on that German word.
Oh, yeah. That's just kind of some ways that I felt like he did this film, I guess. But I'll hop into that one.
Nate's eyes lit up when you.
I was like, what the
Hold
fuck
on,
are you
hold on. What are you
talking
talking
about? I do know what you're saying.
So the French Dispatch, I don't want to really get into it yet, but just what were your overall opinions going? Not once you saw the movie, but how did you feel going into the movie? Was this one that you guys were really excited for?
I think I was very excited just on the sole fact is Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect going in to see this movie because I know that we did know that it was an anthology. So not going to lie, it kind of threw me for a little loop. I wasn't sure how he was going to do that. But it just being a Wes Anderson movie, and I was super excited for it. Not even going to lie.
Do you feel like this is a successful movie? Not in terms of box office, but do you feel like it works overall?
I think his perceived goal is achieved here, yes. Whether, like, obviously we'll talk about it a little more, what it is exactly, but I do think in his eyes it's successful. I had fun watching it. I knew you had told us it was going to be an anthology.
That really threw me off when I saw that. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's true. But I also can't think of the last time I saw a movie, like recently, especially since we started this, there hasn't been one. But I was gonna say, I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that was in that format. So I was just excited to see someone like Wes Anderson approach a new style of storytelling, which I think this movie does a good job of paying like homage to, like a lot of storytellers. Just the way that it's formatted, I would assume it's very, very hard to write something this way and then try to tie it up. And I think the only reason it gets greenlit is because Wes Anderson's trying to do it.
Yeah, I don't really think they would have made this movie if anybody else wanted to, or if this was a younger director who this was maybe their second or third movie. Correct. I really don't think they would do this. Since you're saying you hadn't really seen any movies like that recently, a recent movie that I saw during the Halloween season was, have you guys seen Trick or Treat?
I have. Yeah.
You don't know 2007's Trick or Treat?
I only saw it, or I've only seen parts of it, and I only recognize it because you have the toy.
Oh, I have one of the little toys. Yeah, the little pumpkin. Yeah. Not pumpkin guy,
like
but
a bean, like
his head is made out of a sack. I forget what his name is.
Yeah.
Might be a sack boy.
Sack man. Old sacky boy.
Bro, I do want to say I like what you said a lot about that. I think his goal was achieved here. I think what he set out to do, he did do it. I don't know whether or not that's going to resonate with everybody that goes and sees it. But in terms of what he was trying to do, I think he got that point across.
I think we should preface this with, if you have not seen a lot of Wes Anderson movies, or you're not really the biggest fan of Wes Anderson, I don't usually like saying this, but I would probably stay away from this movie if you're not the biggest fan of Wes Anderson, because this is Wes Anderson to the zenith, like the mountaintop of what he can do.
I read it's just a quick little review that the UK Times did. They said it was Wes Anderson at his most extra.
Yeah. Not to be vulgar here, but I remember when we walked out of the theater, I told you guys, like, this was him jerking himself off for the entire movie. Like, oh, look at my style. It's so great, isn't it?
It did seem like it was a movie that I felt like he wanted to make. Like, this is something that he was probably super passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, however that resonates with an audience or not, I'm not sure. But like we were talking about, he is one of those directors that has that body of work where he can put out something that he really wanted to do. And I respect that.
It did remind me a little bit last week when we were talking about Edgar Wright, and the reason he made The Last Night in Soho was because there's movies that he watched growing up
that he wanted to see,
that he wanted to make.
That's a good point.
And this was, I feel like Wes Anderson is almost coming from the same spot. This is a movie that I would have loved to watch, and so I'm gonna make it.
You know what's interesting now that you're talking about that, and you just put this idea in my head. I hadn't even thought about that until right now. Is that I wasn't really the biggest fan of Last Night in Soho or this movie. Not that I didn't like them, but I just didn't feel completely satisfied by the end.
Right.
And I feel like it's two directors really kind of just like making the movies they want. And I just think it shows you that just because you really like a director's work doesn't mean that you necessarily like the same things that they like. Correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense.
Right? Like, I get that this is what Wes Anderson wants to see, but what Wes Anderson wants to see is not exactly what I want to see.
I think that reminds me a little bit of like QT's inspiration, Quentin Tarantino's biggest inspiration, a lot of B movies, right? And like a lot of people who like QT would hate those B movies.
Yeah, they just like his version of those B movies. It's not like they actually want to go back and watch what is perceived as crap, right?
Exactly. But not by him, because not that's by what inspired him.
That's what, exactly. That's a good point. I like a lot of this movie, but I just don't really feel satisfied by the ending. I know right before we started recording, I said I liked half of each part of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know why it doesn't work for me. I kind of think I'm just like butthurt that this giant cast didn't completely get to interact with each other, because I do think this is probably the most stacked cast of all time.
How about the fact that he has Elizabeth Moss in it, and she doesn't do anything. She's in it for maybe 5 seconds. I mean, same. She
just plays like a secretary or something like that, right?
So the girl from Lady Bird too. I always
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah.
Just this is like a murderer's row of talent of the biggest names.
It is probably his most star-studded cast.
One interesting thing that I did learn about the Wes Anderson always does this in his movies, is he has them all have dinner together.
Yeah, they say like 45 people at a dinner table.
Yeah, like a huge table. So everything that we did see them interact, because Benicio was talking about it, how like you're sitting down with the people that you look up to. Like there's these actors that you've watched growing up, and that's like the part that you're talking about that you would have wanted to see more, that interaction of Benicio del Toro and Bill Murray, or Adrian
Benicio del
Brody.
Toro and Timothy Chalamet. You
Correct,
know what
yeah.
I mean? I just felt like this was like almost a wasted opportunity for a cast this good to not see these big power players actually getting to interact, and they're all just within their own individual stories. That just kind of,
I could see that
it
being
hurt me. I was like, oh man.
a deterrent of the film. I mean, I did really enjoy this film. It definitely, I mean, I don't think it compares to some of his other work like Grand Budapest or, I mean, Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Tenenbaums. Like those are better films. But I don't know. Like I guess you did say it. This is basically an homage to like the New Yorker,
Yeah.
New Yorker magazine.
It's a love letter to journalism.
Exactly. Like it really is. And it basically plays out in different stories throughout this magazine, right? There's something that there's really no reason to give big spoilers or anything. There's not even really too many crazy spoilers you can give away for this movie.
Yeah, if you don't want spoilers, obviously pause this, go see the movie, and come back. Let us know how you feel about the movie. But if you don't mind, I think we can talk about this movie pretty openly.
I think we can too. But there's something that happens that kind of brings everybody back together in this newspaper, which is the French Dispatch, or magazine, I guess.
You know what? Go ahead with your point. I'm going to look up right now and see if the point that you're talking about is like widely known information, so we can just speak more freely about it.
So basically this happens and it kind of brings all these employees together. And then it's basically like a reflection of three of their best stories, or three stories that are well known from this magazine. And so the stories don't connect. There is no connection between one story to the next. They are totally separate anthologies, and the only thing that does bring them together is the fact that they come from this magazine. And I think that can alienate some people, because like you said, I mean, you do want to see this cast interact and, you know, have those moments together. But I don't think that wasn't what the movie was about. I have this quote by somebody, what they said. This was honestly just some person on Reddit, but the way that they said it, I felt like it encapsulated the movie super well.
Shout out Reddit.
All right, so shout out Reddit. I don't have your username or whatever, so whatever. But they said that the episodic nature of the story obviously matches a magazine structure, but it matches the jarring way you would go from politics to food to art, with the only connecting thread being that you're the type of reader to enjoy this magazine, and you trust the magazine and the writers to be interesting.
True.
So, like, if you take this movie as you are really just kind of seeing a magazine put to life, I think you can enjoy it. If you're going to go in thinking that this is a practical, traditional movie that's driven by, like, main story plots, like story drivers, it's not there. And it really isn't. So.
Okay, you know what? Letterboxd has it. Let's just say. So the Letterboxd synopsis of this movie is: the staff of a European publication decides to publish a memorial edition highlighting the three best stories from the last decade. An artist sentenced to imprisonment, student riots, and a kidnapping resolved by a chef. Oh, well, they didn't. They actually didn't mention it. Let's just do it.
Yeah, that's
okay,
fine,
all right.
fine with me.
Spoilers here, because it's just a unifying factor.
Yeah,
It's not like it
does
actually
not
spoils
matter
the
at
plot.
all. Yeah.
Is that Bill Murray's character? His name is Arthur Howitzer Jr. He's the guy who started the magazine, The French Dispatch. And the movie starts around his death, right? And like you said, they're going to publish the three stories that are the best ones from the past decade. And Bill Murray is really the only character that ties them all together.
Exactly.
I don't have a problem with it that it doesn't make sense. It's just not a choice that I really like. That it's what ties the movie together. I don't know. I kind of wish that maybe these plots found a way to intersect with each other. This is kind of a cliche reference, but you know, like the first time you see Pulp Fiction, you're like, what the fuck? These stories, you got a boxer and a hitman and a guy going on a date with the junkie, and then, oh wait, they actually all tie together. I didn't feel like this movie really did that. And I think it is because of that like magazine type nature.
I would agree.
Right?
Like that's what he really wanted to do. And like we said, like you said, this was really like a love letter to writers. And what I felt like the main what I took away from the film was that it was almost like a reflection or a meditation on like the loneliness and isolation that these creative people feel. Like you have the artist in one, you have the writers of this newspaper, and they're all
outcasts.
They're all
kinda.
outcasts. A lot of them are expatriates. That's why I shouted you guys out.
Yeah, shout out to all the international listeners
right?
who may be American.
But like it really just kind of reflects on the art and like the point of view that you get when you are lonely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought the one character that really ties that whole theme together is Jeffrey Wright's character, is
Yes,
Roebuck
right.
Wright, because he's an African American gay man in a whole other country, and he's very reminiscent of. He's not based on exactly, but it's kind of like an amalgamation of James Baldwin and some other writers of that
Exactly.
time, and how they went to France and other countries like that because they were more accepted there.
Exactly.
And I'm not really trying to get into the politics of it all, but just like I thought that really tied your point together
Yeah,
nicely.
I
like
would
that
agree.
character specifically.
That's funny because watching the film, that was probably the story I liked the least, I guess. I don't know, because like we had talked about, this movie is very there's a shit ton of dialogue. And it does kind of become a lot towards the end. Like we had also been at work all day, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. But by the third story, I was even a little worn down.
Yeah, I just felt like there was so much description like that you would get in a magazine or book where it's like, did you just do 5 pages of dialogue that's all description?
Yep.
The white walls and the green tablecloth, and Nathan scratched his forehead, and Alvaro was not looking at either of us, and then this happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it'd be like a 10-second scene.
Right. But the ending of the third part, where you have this interaction between Jeffrey Wright's character and Bill Murray's character, I really felt like that brought the whole film together.
I really like that dynamic between those two characters.
That is what brought the film together for me. That's what really drove home the whole like loneliness and like, you know, we're
That was
we're
one of the
artists.
best parts.
There's a funny line that I really want to mention from that part of the movie is like Jeffrey Wright's character is in jail and Bill Murray breaks him out. And it doesn't break him out. He bails him out to give him a job. And I like when the guy, like one of the prison guards tries to talk to him and he's like, shh, I'm conducting a job interview.
In the prison.
I think that was one of my favorite
I
lines
did like
in the
that a
entire
lot.
movie.
I will say the movie was fucking funny.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I maybe wasn't in a. It sounds funny, but I wasn't like in a mood to laugh because I didn't find myself audibly laughing throughout the movie. But I did think it was funny.
I know Ro and I were laughing quite a bit, it seemed like. And it seemed like some of the people in the audience were, but Ro, what did you feel about this movie?
Well, I just wanted to add, because you guys were talking so much about these characters, and I did some research on it, and I took some notes and found out that a lot of these characters are based off of writers of the New Yorker, and also a bunch of like, this is what I have in my notes is the New Yorker's founder and longtime editor-in-chief Harold Ross inspired the French Dispatch's Arthur Howitzer Jr., played by Wes Anderson's most frequently used actor Bill Murray. Ross's crew of writers included Joseph Mitchell, characterized by Herb St. I don't even know how
Herb
to say
St.
his
Satirac.
and played by Owen Wilson, James Baldwin, and A.J. Liebing, played by Roebuck Wright. The French Dispatch Roebuck Wright, played by Jeffrey Wright, was a combination of these two writers. And S.N. Berman, Tilda Swinton's character. Yeah, and then the other one is Frances McDormand's character is Lucinda Crimmins, and is based on the writer called Mavis Gallant. And then Adrian Brody's character is the only one that's not based on a writer. It's actually based on a real art dealer, and his name was Lord Duveen. So I just think, again, this movie proves that a lot of it is an homage to what things that Wes Anderson seems to find cool. Whether you find that cool, that's all opinionated, but I like that it exposes me to something I'm not very familiar to. I ended up liking this movie more than I thought it would. I didn't think I was going to like it because it was an anthology series. Same thing that I was feeling with you guys, because we all have very similar working schedules. But by the third time, I was like, I know me and Gus talked about this in the car, was like, I get it. I get what this is. I get what you're doing, Wes Anderson. So I was ready for it to end, be like, how are you going to tie this in? But I do think the ending scene where you guys already talked about it, where they kind of talk to each other, Bill Murray's character and
Jeffrey Wright.
And Jeffrey Wright, yeah. They that scene is very powerful and just kind of ties in how people must have thought of this editor and the founder of the New Yorker. So I thought it was cool to just find that information, because I don't know much about that.
What I did really like about Bill Murray's character is after each of these different little 3 segments, you get a little interface with Bill Murray and the person who wrote this, and he's basically editing their their piece in front of them, and I just like it. Like, he reads it, he'll read their like a couple sentences, he'll give his input on why he doesn't like it, and if he thinks that their like justification for it is good enough, he just rolls with it.
Yeah,
And I just thought it was so cool. Like,
I
he
thought
seemed
it
like
was
such a
cool
cool boss.
that he let them be themselves, right?
And like, I think I like that, because I like to think, I mean, I don't obviously know, but I would like to think that is how the kind of New Yorker was, and that's why it turned into such a unique magazine, because you did have this person who really was kind of, we're gonna let this shit fly, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you can back it up and you believe in it, we're gonna roll with it.
Isn't it kind of funny how this movie, it's called The French Dispatch, or the Liberty
Kansas
the
Sun,
Liberty
or something?
Kansas Evening Sun.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny and so Wes Anderson that, as if in Kansas they have this culture magazine about what's going on in France.
That's why I thought it was so interesting, because in the movie they justify that by saying that the Arthur Howitzer Jr. is the son of the man who started the Kansas Sun, and that he wanted to do something else, so he took it. You know, he went over to France and did that.
Or he had like bought another magazine or something and turned it into the French Dispatch.
Exactly.
I just thought that was funny because it's just like a Wes Anderson kind of inserting himself into the movie, because I was just telling you guys before we recorded, I think it's so funny how Wes Anderson portrays himself, even though he's this guy from Texas.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost as if he is an act within himself. Like, he dresses a certain way, he talks a certain way. Oh, when we were making the movie, like,
yeah. No, he's a character. Like, he really is.
He feels like he is one of his characters.
Yeah.
Just walking out in the real world.
What do
Go
you think his house looks like, bro?
Probably just like the one in the Royal Tenenbaums or something like that.
Seriously.
Man.
And then I know Wes Anderson has lived in France for a good amount of his life now, so it's really not surprising that this movie was coming eventually. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I know his next movie, Asteroid City, I believe it's called.
That's what it's
It's
called.
the one they're filming right now. It's a love story set in Europe, so I bet you it'll be
Something-
France again, or like how Grand Budapest was set in a fictional country of like Zabrovka or something like that.
Yeah.
And even this doesn't take place in a real French town. It's in a fictional town called Ennui that he created.
Speaking of the town of Ennui, one of my favorite parts of the movie was the opening with Owen Wilson, where he basically just rides around the city and kind of gives you a little breakdown of what happens throughout the city in the day. But like in the very beginning, when the city like kind of comes alive, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I thought
that
it
one
was
is
so
just-
cool.
That was like movie making magic, right?
Yeah.
Or it even felt like a play,
It did.
because a lot of Wes Anderson stuff feels like a play.
And I think there's even a plate like in this movie. Like,
I
don't
did
know.
not like that part.
That was, yeah.
I told Ro when that scene came on with the play, I was like, I think I checked out a little bit right there. Where I'm like, okay, I decided
He really
I'm
went
not
there.
having a good
Yeah.
time.
I like that you brought up that he lived in France for a long time. So I feel like he has this affinity towards France and French filmmaking. And that was something else that I found out through reading about this, that he just thoroughly was making out a love letter to French cinema.
He was making out with French cinema.
What?
But yeah, I feel like that is something that is very prevalent in the story.
Where do you guys feel like this ranks? I know we've only seen this once, and it was a couple of days ago. This is the longest we've gone between a viewing and then recording, right? We saw it like 3-4 days ago? 3?
Yeah, like 3
Tuesday.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday. Today's Friday. Breaking the fourth wall here. Whatever day it is when you're listening to this, that's the day we saw it.
Exactly.
Whoa, what the hell? I was looking at fantasy basketball for a second. Sorry, guys, we're doing a podcast. I thought that was my notes. Where do you guys feel like this sits on the Wes Anderson tier list?
Oh man.
Is this upper Wes Anderson? Is this lower? The middle?
I would definitely say maybe like upper middle.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
What about you, Ro?
Middle,
Okay.
lower middle.
I'm going to say lower middle too. But just like Edgar Wright, I don't think that Wes Anderson has made a bad movie.
Ooh, yeah, I'm trying to think though, because in all honesty, I haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh,
And
never
I
mind. Mute
haven't.
his mic. He's invalidated at this
But
point.
I'm trying
Movies
to
is
think
shit.
that this movie might be my least favorite one from him though. But I think
Out of what you've seen,
it's
right?
I'm
Because
even
Moonrise
thinking-
Kingdom fucking sucks.
No, 'cause I was
I'm
like,
just
there's
kidding.
no way that I'm gonna like the ones that I haven't seen, not as much as like I'm gonna like them more than this. I know that for a fact. Just because there's I know
strong
that
declaration you're making.
his aesthetic is too like he's Wes Anderson because of these movies. This movie only comes out because he's Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And the only other movie that gets like, I like it, but it gets like shitted on is Isle of Dogs.
I do not like that.
And I like this like Isle of Dogs is better than this.
Oh,
I think so.
We'll save this for the tier list video. I don't really want to get into that. Okay, but it's on the lower middle end. For me, it's towards the bottom. I think that, and I think it's better than Isle of Dogs. I think here I go. See, I can't even do it. I can't even help myself. It's on the lower end.
Catching strays,
But
bro.
I do not like that movie. I do not want to get into it right now, guys.
Stop making me get into it.
Yeah, I think the lower end. But I also don't think Wes Anderson has made a bad movie. I do not think Isle of Dogs is a bad movie.
I agree with that.
It's just not my taste.
It's the same thing you said about Edgar Wright. It's just you expect so much more because they have that name to them.
Yeah, hey, last week's episode, or was that 2 weeks ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Did I even say this on the pod? I know I've said it to you guys. Is that Wes Anderson and Edgar Wright, to me, are like the two of the best, like, it sounds weird calling them commercial, but like commercial filmmakers.
They are more mainstream.
They
than
are more
some other
mainstream,
people.
yeah.
I would agree.
It's not like we're talking about Ari Aster and Robert
a
Eggers.
lot of people do know who Wes Anderson is, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, when
and
I
whether
talk to
you've even
people-
seen his movies or not, I feel like he's had such a big cultural impact, especially on like the hipster
Probably
generation
seen
of
the
the world.
SNL spoof though.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's funny that he is kind of easy to spoof because his style is so particular. Yeah, so you're gonna say, you said lower middle, you said upper
See,
middle.
okay, now I'm thinking about it. Like, I say upper middle, but I'm also thinking of other movies, and it's hard for me to put this movie above a lot of the ones that he's done. So I'm thinking that I just have all his movies up, and then this is probably one of my least favorite movies.
But
by
do you
him, I
like
guess.
Fantastic Mr. Fox a lot, right?
I love that movie. I love that.
I like it too.
There's just something about Wes Anderson, like the symmetry or something about him just makes me feel super nostalgic, and I'm a sucker for nostalgia. So when you throw in the claymation stop motion with the Fantastic Mr. Fox, it just takes me over the edge.
I actually threw that on. It's on Disney Plus, so if you want to watch
Okay,
it.
shout out.
I threw it on after the French Dispatch when I got home, just because I wanted to cleanse my palate of that piece of crap. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Whoa!
Oh man.
What'd you think of it?
Oh, Fantastic Mr.
Yeah.
Fox? I like it.
Yeah.
I do think it's upper Wes Anderson, but most of his movies are. For him to have 9 movies and for this to be what I perceive as the worst one is saying a lot.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, right.
For his movie, the one that he really wanted to do, which
A lot of people are considering this time in his career as like his middle period, because he's very established now, but he's not exactly old. I think he's in his 40s, maybe his 50s. But it's not like he's an old man yet. You know what I mean? Where he's just kind of making whatever they'll allow him to make. I do think he's in that middle period right now where he has the freedom to make what he wants, which is cool. But it just didn't hit for me like that. But like I said, I do like a lot of this movie. And I know in my Letterboxd review, I said as well that the more I think about this movie, the more I like it. I just don't feel as satisfied as I do with the Royal Tenenbaums in Grand Budapest.
I feel that. One thing that I felt when I was watching the movie, and I still feel it now, is that there were scenes where I really wish I could just pause and just take in everything that's going on.
There's so much going on in this movie.
And I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily or a bad thing. I mean, I liked it. I liked that there was a lot going on. I could see that being super distracting for a lot of people.
It demands repeated viewings.
That's how I felt. Is I really feel like this movie does need a second viewing. I know that kind of sounds almost pretentious, but I do feel like it really does.
Yeah, it's not that it's pretentious, but to say like, well, you need to see it twice. Well, then is it really a success if you have to see it twice to make out what's going on? It's not so much what's going on, but there's just so much detail. Like this movie is, if you know Wes Anderson, you know his movies are filled with detail, but this one is just like busting at the seams with like so much information.
It really is. And that's kind of what I wanted. I know Ro kind of touched on it earlier. My eyes shot up to like super big. What he was referencing earlier is he really like this movie. I know he does it with a lot of his movies, but this one I felt like had really specific instances of this. I'm going to butcher the fuck out of this name, so bear with me.
Hey, that's what we're known for at this point.
It's basically like a technique that's used in like plays and films and stuff like that in media. Here we go. Verfremdungseffekt effect? Exactly. I fucked it up. I'm sorry. They also call it like V effect, but basically what it is, here's a definition. It's the distancing effect The distancing effect is a technique used in theater and cinema that prevents the audience from losing itself completely in the narrative, instead making it a conscious, critical observer. And basically, what that means is like, so for an instance, in the art dealer scene, like when they're showing
The people.
Adrian Brody.
no, what Rosenthal? What was it? Moses Rosenthal.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro.
Played by Benicio del Toro. When the way that they showed how he aged. Like, they had one actor that was sitting there, and it was supposed to portray him as a young actor.
It's Tony Revolori from Grand Budapest.
Shout out. And then Benicio del Toro kind of comes up and taps him on the shoulder, and then takes his place, and that's supposed to signify, like, him spending time in jail and him getting older. So there's a lot of that, and even, like, the play in the movie, like you said you didn't like, that's another, like, aspect
Instance
of that. And then another one is in the same art dealer one. When they are having this piece of art that's being shown all around the world, like it's going on its world tour, they had all those, like, everybody was basically stopped and frozen, and they're going from scene to scene, but they're not actually frozen, they're just standing there. I guess that's an old technique that they use a lot in French films too.
That's interesting.
So stuff like that is a very interesting stylistic choice. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I do think that was cool. I feel like that thing you're talking about, where I'm not even gonna attempt to say what you just said.
Call
It's a
it
German word.
the distancing effect.
The distancing effect. Those shots of, like, all of the actors, like, literally standing still instead of, like, slowing the camera down, or not the camera, the edit itself.
Doing like a freeze frame or something.
I thought that was, like, just, I know really cool sounds basic, but yeah, I thought it was really cool.
And that's what I'm talking about, where I'm like, I wish I could pause this and just look at this scene
Take it all in,
because it moves so fast.
That's where this film really is like a play. You throw on the sets, you do stuff like that, and it's just very traditional type of storytelling. And that's why I think that it's just really an homage to stuff that he thinks is really cool. Like you said, simple word to say, but just encapsulates it perfect.
These are things he's done before. Like, he has a
Correct.
visual language too now, because there's a certain scene in this movie where Timothée Chalamet and Lena Cudi, I believe her name is, they're kind of at odds with each other about a certain musical artist. Shout out Tip Top.
I'm happy you're bringing this up. 'Cause this scene was so cool.
And they're standing side by side, or on opposing sides of the jukebox, backs facing each other. And then the cafe that they're in, you realize that it's a set. Well, I mean, obviously it's a set. You're watching a fucking movie. But the set pulls apart like it would in a high school play. And it reveals just like the street or whatever.
Yeah.
And that, it kind of reminded me of, like, Royal Tenenbaums. And in Royal Tenenbaums, when the kids are younger, they do a play in the house. And, like, the same thing happens with the set. Like, it comes apart. And even in Rushmore, like, that character, he is like, he directs plays.
That's true.
He loves that. Like that, like you're saying, it just all connects to what Wes Anderson just finds as his inspiration, which is
starting to sound like it's himself. That's what it feels like, is that he's just inspired by himself now, which is cool. I mean, hey, he owns it, that this is his style and how he likes to work. And he's been working with the same cinematographer forever. I don't know if you guys know that. His name's Robert Yeoman.
That's cool.
He's been with them since Royal Tenenbaums, like, up until now. I think the only one he didn't do was Isle of Dogs, and it's because it was animated.
Yeah.
I'm sure they had to get an animated cinematographer, or
And that
however
shows.
that works.
That really does show that they've worked together.
Yeah, that relationship. And then obviously his, like, family style cast. He has his cast already.
which I wanted to ask you guys.
I think that cast, just this whole thing that we're talking about with, like, him being so obsessed with plays, is kind of how there's, like, acting troupes or, like, circus troupes.
Right.
And it's like Wes Anderson and his traveling circus show, right?
that's cool.
Just because
That
he has
reminds me
these,
of that.
that's what it feels like at this
Yeah.
point. It's just, he takes these actors and, okay, now you're this guy, now you're this guy. And in this one, you were the bad guy. And now in this one, you're the good guy. And, you know, he just keeps going with the same people. I think that's really cool because, I mean, we started this podcast because we wanted to do it together as friends, right? And he's doing that on the highest level, making movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other guy who I can think of who does that is Adam Sandler.
Seriously.
He works with his friends all the time, but these are varying degrees of good.
That's true.
And I just wanted to add to that to say that in one of the interviews they're saying all of these actors have fun and do the movies because they know how Wes Anderson is as a director. They literally will listen to what he wants them to do because they have fun.
Yeah,
doing it for
Willem
Wes
Dafoe
Anderson.
does he even have a line in this film?
Who do you think got
Like one or two.
Who do you think got hoed more, Willem Dafoe or Christoph Waltz? Because he was in that movie for 2 seconds.
That was interesting because we brought up Waltz like
earlier in the
before.
week.
Yeah,
No, earlier in the week. Like
that
the
we were
day
like,
before, I told him, I was like, "Where's Christoph Waltz?
What has he been up to?" And we see him because when we were
2
watching, he looked
seconds
at
in a
me.
Wes Anderson movie. That's what he's been doing.
It's the most bum looking I've ever seen him too.
You know what? I think maybe Christoph Waltz got hoed out the most
Yeah,
because
I think
his
so,
character was. It wasn't a person that Frances McDormand's character wanted to be around, and at least with Willem Dafoe's character, he was in the shit.
At least his name was the Abacus. That's fucking sick.
And like, what the hell, man? He
With
knows
Willem
French,
Dafoe
huh?
too, I think he really gives off that like that. In Grand Budapest, he plays like that bodyguard, like
Yeah.
enforcer type dude, where he doesn't really
Menacing.
say anything.
Yeah.
And I felt like he carried that into this movie as well.
I can see that.
All right, I think let's start getting into the. We don't really have to break them down or anything, but let's talk about like each individual scene, or not scene, but story, and then the cast. I made sure, because this cast is so big, I made sure to like let's break them down by like groups.
Does
The groups
Letterboxd
that
have
they're
them in
in.
order too?
No, I did that myself.
Oh, because I'm looking at it right now. I thought they were in order.
So the story opens and we have Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Elizabeth Moss, and Angelica Houston is the narrator. And everyone besides Elizabeth Moss has worked with Wes Anderson before in multiple projects. Like Angelica Houston was in Royal Tenenbaums and she was in Darjeeling. Bill Murray's been in almost all of them.
Almost all of them, yeah.
Owen Wilson's his first collaborator with Bottle Rocket.
Yeah.
Like they wrote that together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this group of people, this is how you know the cast is going to be stacked. Do you guys really want to talk about the individual, like what each story is, or do we want to just talk about overall if we liked it or not?
Let's just go overall.
Just overall.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
how did you guys feel about this opening
Yeah.
sequence with Owen Wilson and Bill Murray?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I guess it is a little bit different than what I was talking about, the whole Owen Wilson riding the bike thing.
That's in the trailer, so if you guys are listening and have seen the trailer, you probably know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, I liked it. I don't know. It to me, it's always like so warming just to get back into the Wes Anderson world.
It felt very comfortable.
It did.
Yeah,
Like,
it felt nice to watch a movie from a director who you've seen
it's
so many
almost like
movies of.
it's like going back to like an old friend's house. You're like, oh, okay, like this is cool. This is cool. You know?
Agreed.
Oh, it's my quirky friend.
Yeah,
And his
exactly.
quirky little ways and his quirky little movies.
Here we are in ennui.
Yeah, so I thought Owen Wilson's part was cool. It really like gets you ready for the vibe of the movie. And it was very similar to Moonrise Kingdom. The opening with like the narrator who's like, this is the Wes Anderson's got to do stuff like this. This is the exact longitude and latitude of the island that we're on.
Always.
And I felt like that was what Owen Wilson's character was here to
Yeah,
do.
he really was.
And he was also the whole point of that like sequence is for Owen Wilson's character to show you the, like how time has passed in this city and like how it was in the past and how it is now. Even down to like there being snapshots of the past and the future.
That was cool.
And it's the same shot.
That
I thought
was
that was
really
really cool.
And they,
Yeah.
they flip flop from black and white to color in some of them. I thought that was really
That
cool.
black and white color thing. How did you guys feel about that?
I thought it worked really well in the first story.
Yeah.
Everything else, maybe not.
I feel like the rest of the movie could have been in black and white.
could have been.
Is it used a lot in the second story?
Yeah. Multiple times.
I think
but we'll
so.
get there. We'll
I
get
think
there.
so.
Yeah.
Or what do you think, Ro? Did you like that first sequence with Owen Wilson?
Yeah, I think you guys did a really good job about it. I was sitting here trying to think exactly what that's the part that I don't really remember the most right now, if I'm being honest. I think you guys did a good job of talking
I gotta
about
say
it.
this name because this is the most Wes Anderson name I've ever fucking heard. Owen Wilson's name is Herb Sadarak
Yeah.
or something.
Oh my God, Herb
What
Saint
the fuck?
Sadarak. I don't know.
I remember telling you guys, I was like, that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, I may be in danger here.
Yeah, no, I like the opening, and then
I thought it was an interesting way to show you the geography of the city.
it was cool.
But there's so much going on that,
That's-
like we
that's-
said, you're gonna need repeated viewings of this.
I already want to see.
I saw somebody on Letterboxd say that this movie needed subtitles. Like this should have had subtitles
Yeah.
with how much description is going on.
Yeah, could have used it honestly.
I always think you could use it.
Yeah, I do like watching it with subtitles. Anyway,
We should just
so.
start going to the screenings that have the
They do
subtitles.
that.
They do
Yeah.
have that.
They do.
They just don't, like, every time we want to watch stuff in Dolby or in IMAX, they don't have it in those.
Why wasn't the
but-
French Dispatch in Dolby?
Yeah, what the heck?
I need it in IMAX.
Oh man. But then the second story, well, this is basically the first main story, I guess, revolves around imprisoned artist and his muse. The artist, like we said, is played by Benicio del Toro.
And Tony Revolori plays the younger Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, and his muse is played by, her name's Simone, and she's played by
Leia
Seydoux.
Seydoux,
Yeah. She's absolutely beautiful. But
sipping on the pod. I agree.
But yeah, no, I did. How would you feel about that one?
Okay. Oh boy, here we go. This is where man, I'm having real shit for brains today. I don't even know if I already mentioned this right now on the pod, but that I liked pieces of each piece.
You did, yeah, you said you liked like almost half of everything.
I really like the story of the imprisoned artist and his muse.
I did too.
What I didn't like was Tilda Swinton's inclusion in this scene. I don't really like calling them scenes or sequences because they're longer than that.
Story.
Yeah,
Call 'em story.
the story. Let's lay out the cast again. I think it's better to do the cast like this so you don't get lost.
Sounds good.
And you get to see who is interacting with who. It's Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Leia Seydoux, Tony Revolori, Bob Balaban, and Henry Winkler. And if you're a cinephile, you might have seen this, that one of the prison guards is played by the actor who is in Inglourious Bastards, who is keeping Shoshana's family safe. The interaction with Christoph Waltz in the
that
beginning.
is that
yeah.
guy.
That guy with the beard.
Yeah, I do know.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was in Inglourious Bastards. I reached over to Ro during the movie. I was like, "Oh, Inglourious Bastards! Like that's that guy."
The milkman.
Yeah, the milk farmer.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was nice to
Gotcha.
see him because I haven't really seen him in too much. I'm sure he's probably in a lot of European films, but it was nice to see him again, even if
Yeah.
it was in the background.
That was
Inglorious Bastard connection right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Christoph
cool.
Waltz and him.
Wish they could have interacted.
Right.
That's what I thought was funny. I was making the joke right now, but it kind of went under because you guys were talking. But it's like Christoph Waltz. You're not gonna use him. Like he talks French in the Inglorious Bastard too.
yeah, true. You can have him speak
He
French.
speaks so many languages.
But yeah, I did not really like Tilda Swinton's inclusion in that scene. I just thought it was too meta, too many layers, too many onion layers.
I honestly, I thought it was funny. I totally get what you're saying.
No, it's funny.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it is played for a comedic effect.
Yes.
that is part of it.
It totally is.
I didn't think that joke was funny because she is the writer of this story about the imprisoned artist, right? But she's telling the story of the imprisoned artist, and she's also telling the story of how she's like giving a presentation about the artist. So I just thought this was too many layers.
it is really
and it
meta.
really felt like Tilda Swinton's character was Wes Anderson telling you what was going on in this movie instead of just letting it play out. And I felt like there was so much in this movie that I wanted to just let it play out. I don't need you to keep having Tilda Swinton explain to me what's going on. I kind of felt like this, if you had to take the three individual stories, I think this might have been the most interesting story of them all.
I would agree.
Agree.
But just the part of the artist and the muse, not the Tilda Swinton
Yeah.
stuff.
No, yeah, that is definitely is like like you said, it's comedic effect. Put in as a break. It's super this weird meta thing going on. But
Shout out that nude shot of Tilda Swinton.
yeah, exactly. You think that's Wes Anderson
Whoever
being
that
himself?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, dick pic.
Oh my god. But no, dude, I thought that story with the artist and his muse I thought it was really good. And Adrian Brody fucking killed his part.
Once again.
I love Adrian Brody and Wes Anderson
Yeah, dude.
movies. If you haven't seen, I feel like the one a lot of people haven't seen is Darjeeling Unlimited, and that's the one where Adrian Brody gets to really go.
See,
to-
'cause that's the
go
one
to
that I
town.
haven't seen, so.
You'll love it if you
I'll
like
have to- I
Adrian
will check
Brody
it
in these
out.
movies.
I do.
I like the connection of Adrian Brody playing an art dealer in Grand Budapest and in this movie. Or I don't remember if he's exactly an art dealer, but I know he's obsessed with that painting, Boy
Yeah.
with Apple, because
Boy
it's
with
super. It's like super, that fucking painting.
So funny, dude. Like, this is what you like?
Yeah, but he's obsessed with that painting, and in
Yeah.
this one, he actually plays an art dealer. Yeah, I just thought that he really. I know you started watching Succession recently, right?
I have not started it
Oh,
yet.
okay. Well, Adrian Brody's having a little moment right now because he's in the French Dispatch, and he was in the latest episode of Succession. So he's just having a good synergy week for Adrian
Nice.
Brody.
You got to watch the Peter Jackson King Kong next.
No.
No.
Oh man. Oh, Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Hey, he's in it, man.
Mute the mic. Mute the mic.
I'll show myself out.
I did want to just add that this story to me out of the three was my favorite one, and it might just be because I have a soft spot for Benicio, but we talked about this in the car. I would watch a whole 2-hour film on this concept.
Good, yeah. I tried to get to that and I got lost in the sauce.
Like it would really be one of the most entertaining movies, or like I don't know why it sounded like a concept that I would like. Oh, this could be in my top movies of like favorite things to watch. And there's a direct movie that I was reading that does inspire this. That maybe the premise is somewhat. It was like a really like a video that the audio wasn't very well, and Wes is talking about it, and he says the title of the movie, but I wasn't able to catch it. And maybe this is what the premise is for the that movie.
That movie that inspired this story.
Exactly. So
that's a mouthful.
But this was my favorite of the three. I thought there was a lot of funny parts in it. One of my favorite parts in it is when he just wants to like he sits in the electric chair.
And he wants himself to be shot.
Done with it. Yeah.
Like he's like he's not any better having to do these paintings for these people. He feels like a slave, and then his ends up being like his muse, not his girlfriend, I would say his muse, just kind of, and he's like, oh, really? Like kind of just doesn't feel bad for him at all. Like kind of telling him like, what are you talking about? Like it'd be so much worse. And yeah, I did enjoy this one the most out of the three.
You know what that story reminded me a lot of? It reminded me a lot of Phantom Thread. It really did. Like,
I can see what you
mean.
Yeah.
With the muse, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously not super correlated.
I thought you were gonna say old boy.
I think I get what you're saying about like how the muse is like ends up fighting
Almost,
back and be like, no,
yeah.
we're doing this shit.
Yeah,
like whether
keeping
you
him
want
in
to
check,
or not.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But no, dude, I thought it was super cool. I love that. I loved his take on like modern art. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, basically, this guy creates a modern art painting.
Yeah.
And it just blows these people away. They're like, what is it? Like,
Adrian Brody's character, he runs an art gallery with his uncles, right?
yeah.
And I know he's based off a real person.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what Alvaro wants to say right now. But they have a scene with Bob Balaban and Henry Winkler and Adrian Brody, and he's like explaining to him like this is the new wave of art, like no more paintings of fruit and of boats.
Yeah.
Like now we're gonna make you like think about shit. And then there was this hilarious line where Bob Balaban's like, well, is it good? And he's like, of course it's not.
Just in the middle of thinking about this, because that's a really good scene. I started thinking about it in that the scene when they're in court when he's trying to get him out of jail.
Yeah.
That might actually be my favorite one, just because it's so funny.
I believe the line is like, he's like, is there any moment Adrian Brody's in the stands and he's trying to intervene in the court case? He's like, is there any moment during this case where you might ask if anybody objects to the ruling? He's like, kind of like a wedding. He's like, no, there's not. And then I like when he's like, well, what about the fact that he's a generational artist and that his work will mean so much to so many people? Surely there has to be a double standard for these types of things.
And then right after, like, they revoked his chance for parole forever. It's so funny. Nah, that one hit super hard. I loved that one. Like I said, the more and more I thought about it, right after viewing it, I thought that the second story was my favorite. But these past 3 days, like thinking about it, the first one was the best. Like, easy.
I do think the second one is the weakest of the three.
I would
like if they were their own movies.
Oh,
I think that the second one is the weakest one. I think the third one has the most intrigue that it could be the best one. But
the third one almost had the best payoff. Like, you know what I mean? And the second one it does feel a little flat.
I got something I want to say about that later that might be a hot take. I wonder if I'm going to get flamed for this. But
get the torch.
should we
let's
move
not do it
to
now.
the second story though?
Yeah.
One
thing I want to talk about though about this first part is just, I know I already went over the cast, but talking about how stacked it is, the fact that Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, and Tilda Swinton are in a movie together, and only for it to be like 5-10 minutes.
Henry Winkler and Baladan and like
Fonz.
The Fonz.
Like, what?
Okay, but I just wanted to. I feel like that needs to be shouted out every time we talk about one of these stories. It's just like how stacked the cast is, and just for it to be a small little part. And since you mentioned Bob Balaban, in one of the interviews I saw, he mentioned that we don't care if Wes only wants us to be in 5 minutes of our movie because it's just so much fun to be there. So these actors don't really care if they're not being used well or not. They just want to be part of it.
That's really cool.
Which I think that's an awesome environment to work in.
Because I feel like that probably, well, I mean, obviously I don't know, but I feel like that might not happen so much in modern day film. You know, like everybody seems to be like, I want to be the star, I want some money, but you know.
And what's cool about that is you start to think about, he's one of the few directors that I've heard that from, for the actor saying that, and also the age difference. Like you got Timothy Chalamet that also thinks that, but you have Harry Winkler, and you have that age range of all of these actors between those two feel that way about Wes's work, and just really shouts out like how he's viewed by like his actors and maybe possibly other directors as well.
That's cool, yeah.
All right, you guys want to move on to the second one?
Yeah, story 2.
All right, this is I believe it's called Revisions to a Manifesto. I don't remember what the first one's called.
I don't remember.
But I do remember that this one's called Revisions to a Manifesto. This is the one that's got Timothy Chalamet, Frances McDormand, Lena Kudry, and Christoph Waltz. I feel like the trailer kind of set this one up. Before I knew it was an anthology, I feel like the trailer was setting up that Timothy Chalamet was like the most important character in this movie. Did you guys feel that way?
Yeah.
100%.
Right? I thought he was like the main character.
I think they might have done that to try to sell it or something, but
Probably.
because he is popping right now. But
And because it was the fact that whenever they showed Benicio's like scenes, it was always black and white, and then they would show Timothy Chalamet's
Zeffirelli.
Shout out.
Just say it, man.
Zeffirelli B. Another one of those names where I was like, Jesus Christ.
I've been hearing this
I
all
fucking
week.
love that name.
I've been hearing this name
Fucking
all
that
week. So funny.
JoJo's Bizarre Circus ass name.
But like they cut it up in the trailer where it seemed that's why like it was one cohesive story and it was shot the same way. So I agree with you. I did think before we watched it, Timothy Chalamet was going to be the main character.
I'm going to say it. I think this was the weakest one.
I could see how people think that. Did you feel that from like an acting standpoint or just like the story?
No. Just the story itself. Because thinking, maybe it's wrong to be judging it like this, but I was thinking, okay, if this was a played out story, because we're just getting a summary of what could be a whole movie, right? I just felt like this little like romance between young kids against the backdrop of like a student revolution. I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of like, okay, I get it. And then after 5 or 10, I feel like 5 or 10 minutes was enough. I didn't feel like I needed to see an entire hour and a half, hour 45 movie about that.
I would agree. This is the one thinking it, like just continuing to think about it, that I really did like the style of the substance a lot more. Was this one. Like we talked about the whole tip-top scene, like you just had a lot of cool visuals, I thought, in this story.
Let me preface this really quick. I thought it was the weakest story, but I felt like this is where the technical aspect of the film really steps into play of like, okay, we're going to go hard right here with what we can do.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
I do like, I know Gus and me talked about this in the car too, that there's not many stories where an older woman falls in love with a younger kid. Or not even say falls in love, but has an enamored towards a younger kid. So I did like seeing that on screen too. Just that dynamic.
They did have a very interesting love triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this love triangle between a journalist, a student, which is like, that's Timothy Chalamet can't get away from these movies, can he? Where old people are falling in love with him. Come on, Tim.
Timotei.
Timmy boy. What are you doing? You got Armie Hammer in one movie. You got Frances McDormand in this movie. Can't you find someone your own age?
You got to go to Arrakis for that.
Just so I can have wet dreams about a girl I never met before.
She ain't even in the movie.
Little music videos.
Yeah. Hey, and then when he is in a movie with the girl his age, she's like, you ain't shit.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out she ain't shit. No, but yeah, I mean, it was cool. We talked about the technical aspects. I thought they killed it. The story definitely could have delivered more, I think.
I wouldn't say I'm exactly smart enough to fully explain this take, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Oh, let's go.
Is that it's kind of tricky to, and I talked about this with Edgar Wright as well, to have a movie set like against the backdrop of a student revolution and then to not really take sides or really have a point other than it's interesting that it takes place during a student revolution seemed very half-baked.
And I think it was. I mean, the whole reason, what I can remember, the whole reason for the student revolution is it started with the boys wanted access to the girls' dormitories. Like, it really is something that is
true.
not.
I'll give you that.
There isn't much there.
The students themselves, I guess, don't have much substance to why they're even having this revolution.
Exactly.
Right?
I think it's more of a reflection on just that time in people's lives, that angst that people have. Like, you're going to rebel over anything. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how, air quotes, kids are. But
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm absolutely right that that's not a good story beat or whatever, but
I do agree with you. It is a shallow story.
Or Half-Baked seems like a good way to say that.
Half-Baked is good.
it's like I don't really think you have an opinion on French student revolution.
There was no opinion to take.
Yeah.
Like, there really wasn't. It's kind of like kids are going to rebel, and then everything's kind of go back. It's just how things have always been. Like, you'll have a revolution, and then things will subside, and then the next generation will come.
I mean, I'm not going to get into it like I have an opinion on that, and that's why I said I'm not smart enough to really go against this, but I just thought that needed to be brought up.
Yeah, huge.
It's like if you make a movie about war and you don't have any idea about politics or foreign policy, and you're like, hey, I just thought it was cool to make a movie about war.
Yeah, no. Because I really do think that he uses as a vessel to flex his technical abilities. Like, this story
they were
specifically.
fully on display in this one.
Yeah.
There's a shot in the trailer, so I'll just talk about it, where Lena Kudry and Timothy Chalamet are riding on a moped, and it's like through. It was through like the sky.
He's so badass.
Yo, have you guys seen Luca though?
No.
That's not even the first time I've seen that scene this year.
Hey, Grease did it.
Luca already did that shit. The Blade Runner original cut already did that shit.
Yeah,
Grease, they already did that shit.
Exactly.
I know what movies you watch, Wes Anderson. I've seen them too.
One of the coolest things I told Nate to this like earlier today that I didn't like about the second story is when Timothy Chalamet, they're at their parents' house for the dinner, and Frances McDormand, it's after like she walks into the bathroom because of the tear gas.
Yeah.
But then I don't exactly remember what they say, but then they both put on the gas mask.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're gonna go revolt or something, just something along those lines.
And it was just really, that's like, to me, is why I feel like Timothy Chalamet and all the other actors have fun being directed by Wes Anderson. Like, where in another movie are you gonna do something like that for just like a quick second?
All of a sudden, we're just in gas mask.
Yeah, we're just in gas
that
mask.
scene or that shot is like the epitome of what a Wes Anderson movie is.
Correct.
It's just this quirky symmetrical shot and this little nonchalant line about how like, oh, we're revolting, don't you know? And then cut to something else completely. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
It reminds me of the SNL skit that we mentioned, like, the murderers, can we kill you? The kids, no, you may not. Like, oh, geez, honey, wow.
I told you that when he first came on screen. I was like, wow.
Oh, man. So overall, yeah, the second one is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I really like Timothy Chalamet. I mean, you guys know that after the Dune cast.
I like Frances McDormand a lot too. I'm a fan of her.
Yeah, she's solid in everything she's in.
It's growing because I know in the Dune one that you said you were in, not like you couldn't say that you really liked Timothy Chalamet because you had said it's like, oh, well, I've seen Call Me by Your Name
and
Lady
Lady
Bird.
Bird. Yeah, I haven't seen Beautiful Boy, the one with Steve Carell, and there's
The
just
King,
a few.
right?
I haven't seen The King yet. It's on my list.
But it's like for me, same thing. It's adding for me, like in terms of like everything I have seen him in. I'm like, you know what? I do really like how this kid. It's this kid. He's my age, but how he acts.
The young whippersnapper.
I look up to him.
Oh man!
You know what's funny is that you mentioned about Benicio del Toro, like, oh, these actors I look up to. I'm pretty sure in that interview he's like, like Timothy Chalamet, and I'm like, is this dude drunk? Or like, does he even know what he's saying at this point? Like, oh, I look up to actors like Timothy Chalamet, even though I'm like 3 times his age.
Seriously,
he should be looking up to me.
Yeah, you would think.
Benicio does always look like he might have had 1 or 2 beers before his interviews.
I'm pretty sure the character he played in The Usual Suspects is really him.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, oh, wait, what the fuck?
Exactly.
That shit's so
Jimmy
funny.
Taco's stealing my lines.
Oh my god.
Jimmy Taco stealing my line.
Oh my god.
All right, you guys want to move on to the third one?
The third one, yeah. Do you remember what that one was called? What is the title?
I don't. Sorry, guys.
No.
Yeah, this one, once again, just this whole idea of like the writer is on a TV show reciting his story, and then it shows you the story, and then it also shows you the perspective of it being edited, of why it's just a lot.
It is. I felt that the way that I think you felt about the Tilda Swinton one is how I felt about that. I did feel like that about this one, where I'm like, I really don't need this interview right now. Like, it is taking away from the actual story.
Have we made it sound like we hate this movie, even though we
No,
generally like it?
No, I think we're just critiquing it hard because we're really big Wes Anderson
I told
fans.
Ro, and Ro knows this about me. I walk a fine line of someone who can like something and still completely shit on it all the time. I don't know if that's Jesus. If that's
You got this.
what the hell just happened to me? If I'm being a hypocrite. Sorry.
Okay.
What the fuck? This is what happens.
You blocked that word out.
This is what happens. Yeah, I'm just not one. That word just isn't in my vocabulary. You feel me? But yeah, I don't know. I walk a fine line of shitting on things that I like a lot. I just think it makes me enjoy it more when I can not take it so serious.
Yeah.
And for this one, I was like, okay.
'Cause this movie was super. It was super up and down. Like, there were some super high points, and then there were points that I just
Like I said, I like
not the biggest
pieces of
fan.
every piece.
Yeah.
Even I think Jeffrey Wright's character is one of the strongest characters.
He's the best character in this one.
He is.
And he's the character who really has a journey, or like any kind of, not character development, but like he goes from one place to another and it actually matters.
He's almost one of the only characters you can form like an emotional attachment to. Well, I guess I did feel a little bit of emotional attachment to the artist and the muse in the first one. I did. Second one I did not. But then
You
in
feel
this one-
attachment to a murderer?
Oh my god! He didn't do it. He said so.
Well, he said he didn't mean to.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Oh,
It
okay,
was
that
an
makes it better. You didn't mean to. Okay. I thought it was kind of funny how his name's Jeffrey Wright, but that his character's name is Roebuck Wright.
Yeah.
And then just talking about wasting characters, that Liev Schreiber was just playing a talk show host who's just kind of like, not teasing, but testing Jeffrey Wright's character the entire time.
Yeah, he was testing him to see how much he could remember, right? That's
Yeah,
what
because
he was
he's
telling
not a photogenic
typographical.
I have a typographic memory. I can remember every single word I've ever written.
Because I know him from Westworld, and so when I knew that he was going to be in this movie, I was super excited.
Hey, you know what
because-
other movie he's in that we talked about that you like?
What?
Old boy.
Fucking old boy. Here we go. No, it's actually Hunger Games 2. The one with the clock island.
Yep.
He's like not the technician, but like the electrician guy who helps him like
He is.
break the system or whatever.
I
That was
really
the first
like
time
him.
I seen him.
He just has such a phenomenal voice. Like, I don't know, his voice. I could listen to it talk for a long time. Like, he should do audio.
I'm probably not gonna do the impression good, but he's got a deep voice like this, and the way he talks.
It's just so
Just
distinct.
comforting, right?
It belongs in a Wes Anderson movie.
And I recently watched a James Baldwin documentary last year, and then to hear the like the cadence and the tone that Jeffrey Wright was talking in, you could tell that he was trying to
Pretty similar.
Yeah, not to like impersonate him, but just carry himself in that same way that James Baldwin used to talk.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought that story was pretty cool, and I felt like it was the most Wes Anderson-y of them all, of the stories, if that makes sense.
It does.
Well, I know one of the complaints that we had about the story, and we all agreed on it, Gus brought it up, was the change to animation in this story.
That's the take I'm talking about.
That's the.
I'm
okay.
getting to
Okay.
it. I'm getting to it. Let's talk about it.
Because I fully agree with that point that you made. So.
And okay, time to do the cast again, because we have to do the cast
The
for this
cast.
section. We got Jeffrey Wright, we got Liev Schreiber, we got this guy named, his name is I'm gonna probably get it wrong, Matthew, but it's like kind of like how Tyron Matthew. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I watch sports, guys. I know this is a movie podcast, and you guys probably hate sports, but there's other stuff out there. So Matthew Amalric, he plays his name's Serge X in Grand Budapest. I don't know if you guys remember him, but he's like a behind the scenes like money type of guy.
I don't remember him.
And like Gustav H in that movie has to like deal with him a lot, like when they're trying to have meetings about the
I
hotel.
remember now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I seen him before, but it was just in another Wes Anderson movie. Of course.
I do recognize him, but I do not remember from Grand Budapest.
And then we got Stephen Park. He plays what was his name? Like Descafe or something like that. Like he plays, what was his name? Descafier or something.
It was something like
some
that.
name like that. But he was in it, and then we got Willem Dafoe and Saoirse Ronan, and like once again, a stacked cast, right?
Edward Norton.
Oh yeah, and Edward, I didn't even write that
Norton
down.
was
You're
in
right.
there.
Edward Norton.
This
The
is what I thought-
ballet shoes.
This is what I thought was really funny. Is so basically in this, I mean, he's a kidnapper in this story. Edward Norton is, but IMDb has his he's cast as the chauffeur
The chauffeur.
because he drives the kid around at
Yeah.
the end. He steals a car. I thought that was so funny.
Who's the little kid? Do you have his name?
Nah, I don't have his name. I don't care about
They
that.
didn't even have him. I didn't see him on IMDb at all.
You know what? I do like this story, but it was about a cop commissioner and his son and a cab, so I don't like this story anymore. You know what? Never mind. This was the worst story.
That's why we like antlers.
Yeah.
A-cab.
Oh man.
Yeah, this story, it's like the commissioner's son is kidnapped and Jeffrey Wright is
He's a food critic.
he's a food. Yeah, that's what's the funny part is like he's there for the chef.
Because the police chief has this renowned chef that cooks for him all the time. So he goes over for dinner basically.
When I was doing the research, it's that that chef is a cop.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
he has dedicated himself completely to the craft of cooking.
That's it.
That's cool.
but
What a
he-
Wes Anderson
He
thing to
is
do.
one of the cops.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's
that.
like later on when they use him as like a ploy to get the kid back is because he is a cop. They
That
didn't
ma-
really
that
just
makes
put the
more
chef
sense.
in danger.
Okay. That makes way more sense.
And like yeah, Saoirse Ronan, and she's an Academy Award nominee. She might have won, so I could be wrong about that because she's like in Little Women. She's in Lady Bird. She was in like a movie a couple years ago about like Irish immigrants in New York, and that got nominated, and I believe she won for that. And then for her to be in this movie for like 5 seconds, just a background character,
To sing a lullaby.
it just goes to show you how Wes Anderson was like, hey man,
Yeah.
don't care. I don't care how many Academy Awards you won. You'll be in my movie for 2 seconds.
Exactly.
So you know Timothy Chalamet.
So what do you think? The more time passes, do you like this story? Do you not like this story? Is this the weakest of the three?
So, I don't know. It's hard for me. Story wise, this is not the weakest of the three. Like, okay,
It's an interesting concept.
like not how am I going to phrase this? Because we're calling them stories, but writing wise, like what's actually happening in the story, this is not the weakest one. I think the second one is the weakest.
I need a rewatch for this one.
The third one, like I know your hot take. I agree with you on it. So I feel that way. I know we're going to get to that. Like I said it earlier in this podcast, I thought that the ending of this third story was the best. It really drove it home. So yeah, the more that time goes on, I like this one more.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that way too.
I
I
do.
like the second one the least. The first one is in the middle, and then this third one. Wait, do I like this one the most now that the more time passes? I don't know. I'm gonna say undecided on that one, but is it time for me to say the hot take?
Yeah,
Should I
do
say
it.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeffrey Wright is with the commissioner, and they get the kid back, right? And there's this long car chase scene, but it becomes animated. And it's not the first time it's animated throughout the movie. There's like a couple other sequences, I believe. I kind of just seen it as, I guess, a cop-out or just kind of Wes Anderson throwing his hands up and saying, like, look, I can't do, like, a really good action set piece, so we're just going to have to animate it. Because I felt like this would be such a stronger story if they would have just actually filmed this action set piece of the cops chasing the chauffeur and the kid.
I like the way that he uses different styles of media in his movies to bring everything together. I just did not like the length of this. Like the amount of time that he spent on this cartoon car chase, I thought it felt too much for me.
Too long.
It ended up taking me out of it. It did. So,
What about you, Ro?
I was already, like I said, feel like I need to rewatch this third story. I felt like it was already losing me the whole movie at this point, so I feel like I misjudged it. But that was like the animation at that point almost for real just threw me off. I was like, I'm ready for this to end, and it's not even done bad for me to be sitting here like, well, it looked terrible. No, it didn't look terrible at all. But I do agree with you that it just seemed with both of you actually that the length of it is what makes me feel that I agree with Gus's point that if it's so long, it almost felt like I had to do it this way because I wanted it to look a certain way, and I'm not going to be able to do that.
Are you running out of money? Are you not on a director level? Are you not capable of directing this scene? You know,
It's like, is it because action is not something you could see yourself doing, so you kind of copped out and was like, well, I'll animate this because I've done
Is
other
it a safety
animation.
thing? It's like because there's a kid involved, where it's like, okay, I'm not really gonna have a kid jump from car to car. I mean, obviously they're not going to, but Wes Anderson does like these comical effects where, like, for instance, in this one or in one of the earlier stories, a wheelchair completely comes apart when the guy crashes. You know what I mean? So I feel like they could have played it on a comedic level, and it wouldn't have had to look so real, quote unquote.
Right.
What's interesting is when I was reading a lot of people's reviews about this movie, and a lot of people did like this animation car chase scene.
Really?
So I don't know if it's just maybe our opinions on it, but yeah, it seemed like a lot of people really did like it. So I'm not sure.
I mean, I think my opinion's gonna get better of this movie the more time passes. I don't know. Maybe I was expecting too much, but I don't think it's wrong to expect a lot out of Wes Anderson.
No, but so after the car chase, they get the kid back, and then we kind of get the scene with what's his name in the movie? Jeffrey Wright?
Roebuck Wright.
Roebuck Wright. How could I?
You don't know Roebuck Wright?
With him and Bill Murray's character, and it's when Bill Murray is editing his editorial basically, and there's a part that
Wants to leave out, right?
yeah, he wants to leave out because he deemed it too sad to keep in the movie. I mean, in the article.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray reads it, and I'm not going to really give it away, but it is about, like, loneliness almost, and I don't know how you just can be taken away from different things in your life. But yeah, I don't know. That part really drove everything home for me. I really liked it, and I thought Bill Murray's part where he's like, this is the best part of the whole damn story. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, everything else is not even about food. So, I don't know. I like that part a lot.
Yeah. And then you realize that he was supposed to be writing an article about food the entire time.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, this has nothing to do with food. The only part you threw out. He's like, but it was too sad.
You know what? I think maybe the reason I had a negative feeling about this movie going out is, like, I'm someone who reads magazines, but I hardly ever read one from front to back. And I felt like this had the same effect in a negative way that a magazine could have. Where you're like, okay, I like 3 stories, and I'm not going to read the rest of this.
That's what you said to me in the car, which I thought was really funny. You're like, I'll open up the Thrasher magazine.
Oh, yeah, because I'm subscribed to Thrasher, right? I'll read, like, 3 stories, and I'm like, okay, now I got to read all this shit. Like,
I wanna read this other quote. I read that one earlier about, like, the episodic nature of this, and how it does jump around from, like, politics to food to art and all that kind of things, and that is how magazines flow. But this was just somebody else's opinion. I liked it because I think it shows the other side of, I think, more how you feel towards this movie, Gus. It said the whole film felt like I rushed through a modern art museum in a foreign country. I appreciate the beautiful things that I saw, but I'm not sure what to think and make of them as a whole.
yeah, I could see. That's a good point.
So I think there really are 2 sides to this movie.
Shout out random person. Maybe you're listening to this.
Shout out Reddit. If you hear this, you know who you are.
Hey, we agree with you.
But yeah, I thought those were 2 contrasting opinions on this film, and I think maybe this movie will be a little more polarizing than some of his other work. But I enjoyed it as a whole.
Okay, we went way longer than we wanted to. We were gonna try and test. We were gonna try and test, maybe a 30 or 45-minute episode to see if it worked better. But we already blown way past that.
We talked for an hour and 15, and we don't like this movie.
I like this movie.
Okay, well, if I didn't like this movie, we wouldn't be doing this episode.
I did like this movie.
No, I didn't like this
But-
movie. Just being sarcastic.
Yeah. Hey, imagine when I do like a movie. Check the Teton
Teton
episode.
2 hours late there.
If you are demanding the 3-hour cut of this podcast, the Gus cut, let me know. I got about 2 hours more that I can shit on this movie
the
for.
fucking Snyder cut. Jesus.
All right, guys. You guys want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we pretty much hit it all.
All right. So, what are we doing? Shields, crumpets,
Newspapers.
ghosts. We're doing magazines. It's a magazine. It's not a newspaper.
I guess magazine.
How many magazines out of 5?
I put 3.
I'm gonna sit it at a solid 3. I keep teetering between 3 and 3.5. Maybe in the future I'll end up moving it up to a 3.5, but I'm gonna keep it at a 3.
It's funny. I have it as a 3 too, and I feel like we all feel differently about this movie.
It's interesting.
But like I said, it's not a bad movie.
No.
So that's why to me it's a 3. It's just not my cup of tea.
It's very different. It's
Yeah.
a very different kind, even for Wes Anderson.
I do think this is the first time I got tired of the Wes Anderson shtick. And like that's what I wrote. I think I wrote that on Letterboxd too. This was the first time it affected me, where I'm like, all right, dude.
I really do just want to rewatch it because I'm curious if I'm going to get that feeling again.
Hey, let's go right now.
All right, bet. Because I just want to know, like, seeing it again, am I going to feel that kind of tired by the end of it? But I don't know. It's interesting to be so like engaged in a movie, but then also get so tired of it at some points. Yeah, it was an interesting movie, polarizing.
All right, so 3 magazines out of 5.
Three magazines.
A consensus.
What's the code word?
Ooh, time for the code word. Time for the code word. What do we want to call it?
The code word. This one's interesting for this episode. Wow. Can't really think of something right now.
We could do. I mean, you could just hit it with like brown corduroy suit.
Brown corduroy suit.
Because that is what Wes Anderson always wears.
or should we do Zeffirelli stands tip top?
Zeffirelli stands
That is a
tip
lot.
top.
All right, let's do brown corduroy suit. Yeah,
Corduroy suit.
Brown corduroy
this is getting off the
suit.
rails, guys.
That's it, brother.
Okay, if you're listening to this on YouTube, like and subscribe, share. You know the deal. Leave a comment.
Hey, go see this movie and tell us what you thought.
Yeah, go see this movie.
I'm super curious
if
to
it's
see
still available where you
Yeah.
are. I know some people are having trouble seeing this movie.
I know I think I say this about every movie, but this is the movie that I am the most curious to see what other people thought about it. So like, I really do feel like I say that every week.
That's his
but
catchphrase now.
I'm curious what you think about the movie.
Okay, so brown corduroy suit at Grand Cinema Hotel on Instagram, Grand Cine Hotel on Twitter, Grand Cinema Hotel Podcast on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make us a Space Hay. We'll be one of the first movie podcasts on Space Hay. That'll be good. All right, time to wrap it up, guys. French Dispatch, 3 out of 5. Bye.
Bye. See you next week.